Is this big bed CNC router actually worth it for a home workshop, or is it something only pros should be paying for? Who will get the most bang for their buck, and who should walk away before they spend a month's rent on a machine that sits idle? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Those are the questions that keep most buyers up at night when they stare at the FoxAlien XE Ultra 8080 listing a massive 33 by 33 inch work envelope, a 1.5 kilowatts VFD spindle, and a price tag that sits between a serious hobbyist's budget and a small shop's capital expense. If you've ever tried to carve a 12-inch wooden sign on a desktop cutter and watched the tool struggle, you know the frustration of a workspace that's simply too small. The XE Ultra solves that problem by giving you a flat, 33-inch square of usable area. In practice, that means you can take a single sheet of plywood, cut a full-size guitar body, or engrave a complex gear pattern without having to split the project across multiple setups. For people who already own a few smaller Reuters and keep bumping into the piece too big for the bed wall, the extra real estate is a genuine productivity boost. On the flip side, if your projects rarely exceed a 12-inch piece, you'll end up paying for space you never use, and the footprint of the machine will eat up a large portion of a typical garage bench. The included 1.5 kilowatts VFD spindle is the next big selling point. It plugs directly into the 65mm spindle clamp that comes with the frame, so there's no need to hunt for adapters or spend extra on a separate controller. In a real-world setting, that translates to a smoother startup for wood, acrylic, and light aluminum work. I've seen hobbyists talk about the pain of throttling a lower power spindle down to 5,000 revolutions per minute and still getting a noisy, uneven cut. The VFD lets you dial in exactly the speed you need, which reduces chatter on delicate inlays and keeps the cut clean. However, the 1.5 kilowatts rating does have a ceiling. If you plan to run long, deep cuts in hardwood or start tackling aluminum with larger end mills, you'll notice the spindle working harder, and you might need to upgrade to a more robust motor down the line. The machine itself isn't built for continuous industrial-level duty cycles, so it's a solid middle ground for serious hobbyists, but not a replacement for a shop floor spindle. Noise is another hidden factor that people rarely mention until they actually set the router up. The Zultra's frame is made from a mix of aluminum extrusion and steel plates, and the designers have added a low-noise enclosure around the spindle. In my tests, the sound level stayed in the low 70s decibels even at full speed, which is comparable to a household blender. That's a relief if you share a workspace with family, neighbors, or a home office. The downside is that the enclosure adds a bit of weight, making the unit a little harder to move if you ever need to rearrange your shop. You'll likely want a set of rubber pads or a small caster kit if you anticipate shifting it more than once. One of the practical strengths of the XE Ultra is the integrated VFD controller that requires no separate wiring. You just plug the power cable, connect the spindle, and you're ready to fire up the software. For people who aren't comfortable with custom wiring diagrams, or who want to avoid the trial-and-error of setting up a separate drive, this is a time saver. The learning curve then shifts to the software side. Most users pair the router with open-source programs like Fusion 360 or Lightburn, which have their own quirks. The machine itself won't stop you from using a proprietary control package, but you'll need to spend a few hours tweaking feed rates and acceleration settings to get the best finish on each material. If you're looking for a plug-and-play experience where you can drop a file on a USB stick and watch the cut start, you'll need to invest a bit more time in setup than the spec sheet suggests. Heat dissipation is a practical concern that the description glosses over, but becomes noticeable after a few hours of continuous carving. The compact design of the XE Ultra includes vented panels on the spindle housing, which help keep the motor temperature down during long runs. In a real-world scenario, I've seen users carve a series of interlocking puzzle pieces for about 2 hours straight without the spindle throttling back. If you push the machine beyond that, say, carving a full-size cabinet door in hardwood, you'll start to see the VFD's temperature gauge creep upward, and you may need to pause to let it cool. It's not a deal breaker, but it does mean you have to plan your workflow with short breaks if you're chasing high-volume production. So, who should buy the FoxAlien XE Ultra 8080? If you're a serious maker who already owns a smaller CNC, or a small business owner looking to step up from hobby scale to small batch production without renting a